Welcome, y'all, to another episode of the T Corner. I'm your host, Terence, the Spoken King. And yes, I need to go ahead and change that intro right there. It's no longer CEO. Yeah, like I said on the last podcast, that I'm just going to leave the CEO for pretty much the Twitch gaming and stuff like that. But when it comes down to my poetry, I want to have a little bit more of my namesake on there. So yes, it's Terrence the Spoken King and stuff. So yeah, that's my actual poet name. But yes, today we got a special guest here on the show. He is the author of Quantum Justice, and his name is Douglas Boggs. And please welcome him to the T Corner. And we're gonna bring him in right now. Hey, how you doing, man?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So, what inspired you to first start writing?
Wow, that goes back quite a long way. I got a few years on you, I think, too. So that goes back to freshman high school creative writing class. I was always writing, but in my creative writing class, I ended up writing a story. I was reading a lot of Louis L'Amour, some Western books back then, and so I was writing this little Western story for my creative writing class in high school, and it ended up being it was a short story of about 110 odd pages that I wasn't even complete yet, and the teacher gave me an A++, and that kind of fed the writing bug. It took in order for that to really play out into the literary world, it took quite a long time. So I released my book Quantum of Justice last year. So it took a while for that to come to fruition in the literary world, but I've been writing poetry and songs since I was even prior to that. I was about 12 when I started writing lyrics, and as I've been a lifelong musician. So I think the bug of writing has always been there. It's just a matter of where it showed up, whether I created the muse or whether the muse showed up. I think part of writing for me now is learning how to embrace and create the muse rather than wait for it to show up,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's exactly, because writing is a very creative technique. You know what I'm saying? And anybody that writes, whether you're a poet or an author or a musician, songwriter, you cannot force that at all. If you force it, it's gonna come out terrible.
Yeah.
And
I think
no.
it's a matter of, if you want to be I think there's a point of not forcing it, but learning how to welcome the creative process, so you can be productive. Because if you're always waiting for inspiration, because you can find inspiration everywhere, it's always around if you're open to the universe to show you the way, I think some writers get caught in that quagmire of waiting for inspiration, and that can take your whole life, and all of a sudden nothing shows up.
Exactly. Like I remember one teacher once told me, everybody want to be Picasso, but they don't want to be the beginning Picasso. And
Yeah,
they want
exactly.
Picasso now, be like, oh, I'm a genius and stuff, but like people forget that in Picasso time, they thought that his artwork was what's this?
Yeah. Little,
It's just shapes. What is this?
right. Right.
It's just
Yeah,
now today's time now it's priceless.
exactly. Exactly. I think also he didn't care.
Yeah,
You know, as
exactly.
an artist, I think the key to your art is to be truthful to yourself and not write
Exactly.
or paint or sing or create music or whatever for someone else.
Yeah,
Don't try to make your art to satisfy someone other than yourself. Uh,
exactly.
you got to
And
be true to yourself.
and I think that's why his artwork today resonates with us because we like, yo, we all about one's self abilities, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And we embrace that. You know, back then, they was all into, it gotta look realistic. It gotta look just like me and stuff like that.
yeah,
And I mean, those paintings are good, the portrait paintings, but I like the ones that's abstract, like his and stuff. So I gravitate to people that think outside the box a lot. You know what I'm saying? So what you were
yeah,
saying is true facts.
yeah. I think, but even that's a judgment call.
Hmm.
You know, because someone who we might perceive as inside a box, for
Hmm.
them that might be a big stretch, and that might be out of a
Yeah,
box for them. You know, it's kind of interesting. The art
yeah,
art is very subjective,
yeah, yeah,
and when we get into that objectivity of art, I think that's the danger. You know,
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, what got you? Okay, so what got you like writing poetry? Because I'm a poet myself, and I love hearing the stories about what inspired people to write poetry. We tapped into it a little bit, finding like finding the balance in the universe and stuff, that
right?
your creative balance right there. And I remember one time I just looked at the wall and looked at a crack on the wall and wrote a poem about that crack in the wall and turned it into like a like I'm walking through a canyon or something. And I was like amazed about that, but I didn't know that I was tapping into what you were saying. And as time went on, that became my way of expression. So how did
Right.
you get into poetry and realize like, yo, you could do something with this?
Yeah, I am I'm a person that has always been involved in politics.
Hmm.
Uh, so when I was when I was 8, I think I was 8. This dates me quite a bit, but I won't raise any names that way. It don't date me as much. But anyway, I was 8, and I was running a political campaign. It
Hmm.
was a free thinking school that I was in for a year or so.
Hmm.
That kind of like Montessori or something. I don't know nowadays. But at any rate, so there was one of the things that I did was I ran a political campaign. There was a presidential year, um, and so I became politically involved. So I've always been involved in politics, and I was kind of learning a little bit back then. I was I was 8, so it wasn't anything. It was probably quite funny if I had any of the documentation at this point, but um, but my mind has always kind of looked at my mind and my heart has always been for the little guy. Um, I think that's and I've always tried to um, strengthen the voice of the little guy, and
Hmm.
so I started writing poetry in a reactionary mode, I think it was, when I was, say, 10 or 12, of writing of lyrics. Back then, I remember a song that I actually want to put it on my blog. Now that you can bring it up, but it was a song about the environment. Back, I mean, we're talking 40 some odd years ago. And so I was concerned about the world and the environment back then, and I wrote a poem about it. And subsequently, I was practicing piano, so I put some music to it, and all of a sudden, I'm a songwriter. So it gestated out of just frustration that my mind needed a voice and a release. So it was a matter of shutting the door to where the piano was and sitting there and finding some solace that I could write words that would free my mind and take some of the burden that I was feeling in my 12-year-old heart, you know. And this world of confusion, some people say it's just an illusion, and I went down this path, and that became one of my first songs. But it was out of reaction to where I thought we were headed, you know.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, and you actually started going a little bit into what I was about to talk about next, like your you was talking about that you had a music background and stuff like that. So yeah, and one of my tools that I use to help me through life is poetry and music. So
Right.
and I create music myself sometimes, and I just was like, yo, when I saw that you was a poet, an author, and a musician, I was like, yes, I need you on the show. So yeah. So when did you start like tapping into the music side of it?
Well, I was blessed to be able to. This was back in the day when there was music in schools.
hmm
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wish that was the case anymore. Around this country, there's a lot of our kids don't have that blessing that I had, for sure. And so you have to look at it. You have to find it somewhere else, or find it with your friends or what, and create it on your own. But I was blessed to have it in the school. But I was also blessed to have it. I grew up in the church, and so music in the church, and so I was singing since I was 4, and that's my main instrument, is my voice. So I'm a singer. I'm a lead singer for a progressive rock band called The Ring, and we're out here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We've been together for about 30 years or so. And but I also do singer-songwriter things and just play the piano, sort of so that I've danced between different styles. But I think the music bug for me started, I would say, in the church, really, and then it gestated through the schools and allowed me the opportunity to be in different shows and take on different instruments, things like that. And that's one of the blessings. Like I say, one of the blessings that I had, and we need more. We need more of that back in our schools.
Exactly.
I think the kids need that.
Yes, because I'm gonna be honest with you. And this is not to knock on anybody, but not all kids is gonna be an athlete. There's some kids that need to be artistic and they need the arts. They need music. because that's what's inside of them. And if you start taking that away from schools where they're developing, then that would lead to a whole different, outcome that everybody be like, well, what happened to this person here? Because they wasn't able to develop their true passion that was inside of them.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because where my mind went just now was, and you brought up Picasso, and let's go back farther, Michelangelo and Da Vinci and those guys. We don't know any sports heroes from the 1400s.
Exactly.
We know artists.
Mm-hmm.
It's the artists that changed the world.
Exactly.
We raise the consciousness. We raise the awareness. And what we've gotten, what sports was back in Nero's Rome and the gladiator days was what we have today for sports. It was a way to pacify the disgruntled public, so they wouldn't mob and take over the government. And the artists were there to shed light. And so it's quite interesting over time, where the system that we live in, this capitalistic system that we live in, exposes the sport world. But I guarantee you, in a couple more 100 years from now, the people we're going to remember, especially if the grid goes down and everything goes to chaos, people that have books or paintings and things of that nature will be the ones that are found and remembered, because everything else is digitized and it'll go away. That's partly why I wanted to write a book, rather than I was going to do a documentary on the premise of my book, which is the fraud of the foreclosure industry. And I was set out to do a documentary at first, but then circumstances kind of changed what took place. And in the broad scheme of it all, I'm glad that I can put this in my hands.
Yeah, exactly.
And if the world goes out, and there's times when my mind thinks, wow, this world could really go south, and this technological, like this platform that we're on, for all intents and purposes, if the world goes too far south, we might not be able to access it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's fun that you was talking about, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and all the artists back then. Because I was just thinking about another thing that my music teacher taught us back in junior high. Like, even back in elementary, when you first picked up an instrument. When I first picked up an instrument, it was my junior high teacher was teaching us up in elementary, and he was like, "Yo, let me tell you something about music. Everybody speaks a different language. Everybody around the world speaks a different language. But the one universal language is music."
Yeah.
Because everybody can relate to it. Like, for example, Beethoven, Symphony No. 5. Yeah. We can relate to it. Somebody in Japan can relate to it. It don't have no words to it. It's just notes.
Right.
And to this day, Symphony No. 5 is still being sampled by hip hop stars, R&B stars, rock, everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was like about 500 years ago now. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yo, we just
Talk
about
about
that.
King Daddy.
Yeah, exactly. So, so it's very important that we leave the writings on the earth while we are still here, whether it's music or poetry or novels, because that's the stuff, like how you said, that's going to last the test of time.
You know,
Like,
yeah, we have a language that was developed over the last 10 or 12,000 years
mhm,
across the planet, coming through Sumerians, Babylonia,
mhm,
um, and the Asian world, and there were different nuances that took shape
mhm,
and shaped it to what we have today. But the reason we were able to do that and have that and create that is because of clay tablets where things were written. Otherwise, everything was the spoken word,
exactly.
and
Ex-
uh,
And
and so
we all know how that ends. So we all done did that test before up in school. You start
yeah,
off with one person knowing the truth. By the time it gets on the other end, it's a whole different story.
yeah, and that's that's that whole parable of Babylon.
Hmm.
You have this place where all this influx of different people from different places and all these different languages, and nobody understood anything, and it ended up in chaos. You know,
Hmm.
and the way to hone it was a was the written was words was language that could be codified, and written down and tabulated, um, and along with that uh, came numbers. And so
Hmm.
between those words and those numbers, we have uh, written words and music and math, which creates the basis of our society. That's how we interact with each other. You know,
Hmm.
if you travel, I've traveled extensively around the world, and I've been blessed to be able to do that. And uh, when you're in another country and you don't speak that language, um, you you use smiles and motions and hand signals, and you rub your stomach, or oh, I'm hungry, or whatever. I don't know. There's different ways to speak without saying words, but you don't get very far. So in order for us to really come together and exchange cultures and exchange uh, um, who we are as human beings, we needed to learn a universal language. And like you said, I think that universal language first was music, rhythm, you know.
Exactly. So now let's talk about your book, Quantum Justice. What was the inspiration and like the inspiration for you to write this book and such a way that you did?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Quantum of Justice gestated out of a lawsuit that I had against Wells Fargo Bank. I was I'm a real estate developer and a builder, and I have been all of my adult life. And back in 2008, when the economy went south because Wall Street got greedy, uh, everything imploded around the world. We all have a story that is attached to that one way or another, for those of us that were um, alive and participating in the world at that time. It affected everybody.
Mhm.
In my case, there came a point economically, the construction world and the real estate world were the hardest hit around the planet,
Mhm.
uh, because of the fraud and the corruption that was going on on Wall Street using mortgage-backed securities and things of that nature. I didn't know all of this then. I didn't know all that. But I was trying to save my businesses that I had, and I was building houses near you, down in Texas, and I had some projects here in California where I'm at, and that slowed down to a stop, and I had to let go of 30 odd employees and whatnot, and it was a very difficult time. And I was holding a lot of real estate, and I was trying to maintain all of that. And then I got a letter uh, of foreclosure notice from Wells Fargo Bank.
Mhm.
I'm narrowing the story slightly here, but you can read the full 450 pages of the story. But yeah, so I started getting foreclosure documents from Wells Fargo Bank while I was current on my mortgage, and that changed everything, uh, because that's not how it's supposed to work. And the only in California, it's a deed of trust state, and so the foreclosure process is taken out of the court system. It's kind of it's you they call it a non-judiciary foreclosure process because there's what's called a trustee in a deed of trust that acts as the court. Okay, and so what took place was there was a lot of fraudulent documentation being filed while I had been current with my mortgage. Now all of a sudden I'm fighting foreclosure, and none of it made sense. So the only way to stop when you're in a uh, when you're in a situation like non-judicial foreclosure is to file a lawsuit. And so that's what I had to do in order to save my house. And I didn't have any money for a lawyer, so I had to be my own lawyer. So now you're thrown into the den of thieves, and learning the world of law very quickly in order to salvage my home. The lawsuit took me in and out of California Superior Court, Appellate Court, State Supreme Court. I bounced in and out of IRS court, and called detainer court, which is the when they start to take the home. So all of this was happening all at the same time. It was mayhem. It was chaos. I was on the verge of a very dark place in life, and so it was very challenging. But so my wife and I at the time were just trying to maintain, and that's where it gestated out of. At the end, what I found in the process of my research in order to litigate the case, I found that anyone, anytime, anywhere can take someone's house.
Mhm.
And when I put that out into the court and presented it and said, this is why we have fraudulent documentation in the courts, because of a fine, detailed code that is now precedent law that's allowing banks to fraudulently steal people across the country. You know, and when I presented it after 4 years of litigation, I said, "Just you're if I'm wrong, then let the 8 attorneys, whatever, standing over there, let them tell me how I'm wrong." And they couldn't. And so nothing has changed since then. No laws have changed since then, because at that time, I was naive at this time. The naivety was palpable, because no judge is going to sign off on this. If he would have said, you're right, we're going to change this, then everyone would have filed a lawsuit, and the entire capitalist paradigm would have imploded. Based on this premise, theoretically, but it could have, and no judge is going to sign off on it. So judge dismissed my case. I had a variety of judges throughout the entire case over the span of the time. But when the judge that was there at the time heard this, he immediately dismissed the case and took all of the hundreds of documentation that had been written in the file, moved them from public view. And so, as I said in the beginning of this conversation, I've always been a fighter for the little guy, voices that that struggle within the system that we live in and that don't have a voice. It's a hard. It can be hard when you're at that place. And so the only way for me to get this message out, if you can't find that information anymore in the court system, I had to write a book. That's really that simple. And so I tried to figure out how to take my court documents and hone them and explain the process that I've been for 4 years in a palatable volume that it also can entertain someone while they read it. So it's because the world of law is shit. I mean, it's dark and it's boring. So I needed to try to make it palatable for someone to learn and understand, yet at the same token, be educated to the point of it being a document, so to speak, that is usable. And I'm happy to say, it's an entertaining read. I have it's a nonfiction. I have my story, how I got to where I got. But at the same token, there's poetry in there. I like writing with metaphor, and so it was a really interesting exercise for my first book to take on. But I'm really proud of it, and it's being used in courts around the United States now. It's being quoted in some of the courts in the land. And so I'm really grateful for that. People are using it, and people are taking it as a tool. Every case is a little bit different. Once you find some of the nuances that I present, it's not every case is as different as we think. So I'm proud of it. I'm very proud of it. It's certainly not something that's a runaway bestseller because it's because of its topic on its own. I'm okay with that,
Yes, indeed. Almost like what we was talking about earlier about Picasso. He didn't care about people what they thought. He just did what he felt in his heart.
Exactly, and I wanted it to be something that was that could stand on its own, and I wanted it to be entertaining. And it is. I've had some lawyers that argue at the federal Supreme Court level that have used this used some of my book in their argument, and that makes me very proud. Because that was the intent. I needed the information to be out there. And if you Google my name and if you Google Wells Fargo Bank with my name or my name, quantum and things, you will find some cool documents out there. But what's interesting is the system has removed all of the documentation that has been written and filed in the court system that helps the little guy. All the documents that you will find now online are beneficial to the system of banks. And so it's interesting with that the book needed to be put out there in order to cross the systemic boundary, the walls that capitalistic system, that paradigm that we live in, that we're trapped in, but it is what it is. That's where we are, and we have to live in it,
Oh yeah, and like how you said, like there's things in this system that they really do not want to get out and stuff, but because hey, like one of my favorite movies, Wall Street.
Yeah.
When Michael Douglas said greed is good, that was paramount, because that's pretty much what life is. Sad to say it.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna bring it out there and say it. Like, yo, there's people that would, hey, greed is good. There's a lot of Michael Douglases that in that movie that's keeping the train going. So yeah, now we at the point of the show where I call the credentials, where I give you the flow and you get to tell people where they could see your writings, bring up your band, like where y'all gonna be performing at it, and stuff like that. If you got an album coming out and stuff like that, the floor is yours.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah,
no problem.
The book can be found at quantumofjustice.com. You can find it on any retailer. It's about retailers throughout the world, brick and mortar or online. You can go to, I have a blog and a podcast site at douglasjboggs.substack.com, and you can find the book there as well. I have a tab there that says shop, so you can buy it directly from me. And there's also a new poetry tab, which I have become quite proud of, that I'm massaging now, and I'm starting to put the lyrics that I've been writing over the years of my life on there, and that will eventually become a book that I'm going to be releasing by the end of this year, a poetry collection, and that'll be fun. Maybe do some little art, squiggle art and drawings and things. I'm not sure, but that's gestating right now. And the band, we are called The Ring, and we weren't smart enough to get The Ring name when the internet started, and now there's the Ring movie, Lord of the Rings, etc., etc. So The Ring actually is it's hard to find. So I'm going to put a tab on my book there too for the band, and that'll be called The Ring. Now I brought that forward, I'm just thinking, why don't I do that? So thank you for that. We are on SoundCloud, but and so you can hear a stream. We have an album called Full Circle, and so if you Google The Ring Full Circle on SoundCloud, you'll find us there. But it'll be on my blog, douglasjboggs.substack.com, and it's a progressive rock project. So if you're not familiar with progressive rock, it is a lot of different time signatures. So music, you have the 4/4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. In rock, we have some stuff coming out in our next album that we're working on now. I have been writing our project during this whole COVID thing. And we put together 14 tunes, and it's been an interesting project writing with the drummer, because technology has allowed us to do that in a digitized world. So I go over to his studio, and we've been writing. He would come up with these drum riffs, and it would be in 4/4, then one in 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 9/8, 11/8, 13/8, and 15/8 time signatures. So for those musicians out there, I guarantee you there's some jaws that drop thinking, how are you putting words to some of this? And I was nervous.
Yeah. I'm over here like, what? Like, I'm like, hold on, time out. What? How?
Yeah, I'll keep you posted with that, and we'll touch base, because there's some stuff that he called me up one day, and he says, "Okay, dude, I got this new thing, and it's in a 15/8." And I was like, "Devin, I can't 15/8. I can't even think 15/8. How am I going to? There's no way." I go over to his house. He lives out in the country, in his studios in the barn. It's really funny. And so I spent the weekend over there, and he's just playing this drum pattern over and over again, and he's got some other instruments to it, and it was just he and myself, but it as a poet, you start, the words create their own rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, in songwriting, when I've come to a point, because I've been doing it long enough now, but I hear, how this 15/8 song gestated was, I was listening to the radio, I was listening to some talk radio on the way over to his house. And so I had this whole political diatribe that was going on in my mind, that I was thinking as this rhythm, this polyrhythm was going on. It was some, as African beats and all that. If you're into some African music, there's, where all those beats just gestate and it becomes fluid, right? And it's not. You don't just tap into it like it's country music, It's there's a lot of stuff going on, and you can be in it in one place, and someone else can be in it in another place, because there's all these different polyrhythms, right? That's kind of what prog rock is. And so I was nervous about the 15/8 tune, but I tell you what, dude, as soon as it started coming out, and I heard the clip over a couple of times, the words, they just came right out. It was like fluid. It was really cool. So I'm excited about that. We want to keep going with it, and we're starting to get some recording done with it. But I'll keep you posted. It'll be cool.
Oh yeah, man. I would love to hear that, and even promote it on the podcast and stuff like that. Because when you said 15/8, I'm like, I done heard some real fast stuff before. I'm like, no wonder. But like how you said, when you're a poet and you could just sit down and feel the rhythm, that's a whole different zone, a whole different vibe. That's what you call true vibing. Like,
exactly.
When you could sit down, listen to the song, and then all of a sudden, just come out with the words. And I love that. And for those that don't know about music, that's what they call a vibe session when that happens.
I always thought, I wrote when I was in my lawsuit, I was thinking about making a documentary. I woke up about 3 in the morning one day, and I wrote a rap tune.
Yeah.
And because it was, most of the people that were being struggling through the foreclosure chaos was the black community was hit hard. And so I thought, okay, well, that might be interesting to bring in that. I'd never written a rap song before. I'm a white guy, you know. I come from Iowa, the cornfields, and I don't, you know. But I woke up, and it happened, and it just flowed out, and I ended up connecting with Too Short. And I was like, oh, dude, I got this new tune, man, and I think it would be really cool to for you to put this out because you know, it's a different lyrically, it's a different avenue than what his catalog was normally about. And so we were gestating and talking back and forth a little bit and starting to get some wheels, and I wasn't ready, you know, at that point. So it hasn't played itself out, but I continued to put the song out, or I continued to try and massage it and everything. And so that's my first foray into what I considered myself to be as a rap. But the respect that I have for that, and which took me out of and it created boundaries for me, walls to break, is I can't, at least I thought that I couldn't, lyrics so you know, when you're in those moments where you're talking, where people are back and forth and they're just doing those I don't think that fast. You know, I need to sit down with a pad of paper and I write and I listen to that beat over again, and I'm like, and so I think this whole exercise of this new album and writing that first rap tune that I got, it's culminated into a point where I've expanded as an artist in that regard, because that day that I was in this 58 time signature, it just came right out. Now I don't know if I'd be able to bounce off of somebody else. I've never done that. I've never been in that position, and I have a lot of respect for that, you know, because that's a really hard craft. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
but
yes, indeed.
Maybe someday I'll get there. I don't know.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Hey, man, and I want to just go ahead and say this real quickly. You are welcome back on the show anytime. Like if you write another book, or if the Ring come out with a new album or something, please let me know, and I have you on the show, man. Because like between poetry, writing books, and especially music, we could have this podcast go on for about an hour, 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? Because I love hearing stuff like that, because that's what I resonate with, and that's why I started this podcast for the arts, like true artists that's really passionate about their craft. So yes, you are always welcome back on this show.
I appreciate that, Terence. I appreciate that.
Okay. Hey, y'all, that's a wrap for today. Hey, I'll catch y'all next time. And like I say always, stay blessed, keep your head up, and you'll be all right. Until next time, this is Terence, the Smoking King, signing out. One love, one dream. Peace, y'all.
Thanks, Terence.